to order, and we'll do roll call. Mike Bollier. Rudy Delafiore.
Present.
Kirsten Erlinson.
Kirsten Erlinson, present. Andover.
Pam Farrington.
Marlboro.
Carrie Fralino. Drew Golphin.
Drew Golphin, Marlboro.
Jessica Hall.
Jessica Hall, Hebron.
Amy Romanchuk.
Amy Romanchuk, Marlboro.
Scott Soyette.
Scott Soya, Andover.
Lisa Taude. Okay. And Heather Summer from Hebron. And our student representatives, Brianna Adupoku. Yusuf Ahmed. And Avery Suroviak. Okay. We can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro community engagement and attendance at BOE public meetings is welcomed. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the BOE may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes, and citizens will be asked to identify themselves and the town they are from. Because the BOE is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the BOE is not permitted to engage in a discussion of the comments presented. Is there anybody that would like to make public comment? Kim?
Kim has her hand up. Kim Kane.
Hi, Kim Kane, Hebron, Connecticut. I'm commenting about the proposed 2% decrease in the RHAM budget that you asked Dr. McNamara to take action on. Among the cuts to the budget is a reduction in teaching staff, and I'm asking as you review the budget that no further cuts to the teaching staff be taken. I understand that Hebron's proposed education budget is high at 9.78%. Their initial increase was 5.90%, still higher than RHAM's initial 4.77% increase. When their budget included cutting teaching staff, parents were vocal about their opposition to this, and those staff were added back into the budget. They haven't looked at their budget for creative ways to decrease spending. They're just going forward with the large increase, as you know. Andover has proposed an 11% budget increase. Again, they haven't come up with ways to reduce it as of yet. They have not proposed cutting teaching staff. Marlboro has proposed a 3.57% increase, much lower than the other two towns, which includes reducing one of their principals to a 200-day assistant principal and a reduction in paraprofessional staff. Again, no teaching staff are being reduced. The current 2.77% proposed RHAM budget is much lower than what two of our sending towns are proposing. Shouldn't their boards of ed be asking their leadership to find ways to reduce their budgets instead of us? RHAM shouldn't have to slash their budget because the other towns are not inclined to do so. Of course, as REA president, I don't support reducing any of our teaching staff. When I addressed you in December, I mentioned the excellent, talented staff at RHAM and the unique learning opportunities we provide to the students at RHAM. Part of our strategic plan under talent management is to attract and retain a strong staff. We have worked hard to recruit new talent. Let's not lose them. Further reductions to the budget will have a detrimental effect on the students and the programs that are available to them. RHAM has an excellent educational reputation, as you know, and we would like to maintain that. I implore the board to support these needs in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Is there anybody else that would like to make public comment?
There's two other hands up, I believe. A Tara M and maybe have Tara M go first.
Sure. Tara?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I apologize sincerely for my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm here because of the repeated concerns that have been raised.
Sir, can you provide your name and address, please?
Sorry, Tara Monge, 234 Flood Road, Marlborough, Connecticut. I'm here for the repeated concerns that have been raised regarding the issues that have been primarily impacting our female athletic program. And to date, there has not been a clear substantive response outlining how these concerns are being addressed. I reviewed the Title IX document on the Region 8 site, which is explicit in its mandate that, quote, no person in the United States shall be on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal or financial assistance. The 2024 regulations further clarify that when a district has knowledge of conduct that reasonably may constitute sex discrimination within its educational programs, it must respond promptly and effectively. Silence, delay, or the absence of transparent corrective action creates optics that are difficult to reconcile with that obligation, particularly when the concerns raised disproportionately affect female student athletes. I'm not here to assign blame. I'm here to promote governance, accountability, and prevention. We are asking for formalized, written protocols that ensure equitable oversight moving forward. That includes clearly defined and transparent hiring practices for athletic coaches, grounded in objective criteria and conflict of interest safeguards. It includes consistent evaluation standards applied equitably across boys and girls programs. It includes structured exit interviews for departing coaches conducted by a neutral review body composed of both administration and parent representation, so patterns, climate concerns, or equity issues can be identified and addressed early. Additionally, there must be a regular documented review of athletic director actions, inactions, and sphere of influence to ensure decisions are aligned with district policy, equitable practice, and Title IX obligations. Oversight mechanisms are not punitive, they are protective. They ensure transparency, prevent appearance of bias or inequity, and safeguard both student and the district. Our female athletes deserve to know that their programs are valued equally, overseen equitably, and supported in the same urgency and transparency as every other program. We respectfully request documented review, clear communication, and concrete steps demonstrating how the district is ensuring compliance with its Title IX responsibilities and restoring confidence in equitable leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Heather Little. Heather, are you on mute?
Oh, she's on mute.
Eric, are you able to unmute her?
No, I can't unmute somebody.
Heather, if you're having any issues, you want to type your comments, you can put your comment in. So Tara, if you can hear me, but you can't communicate with us, we're not hearing you. What I would say is if you have a public comment that you'd like to make, you can type it into the chat box during the duration of the meeting, and we can make sure that it's included in the meeting minutes. But otherwise, Heather, I think we're going to have to move on with technical difficulties.
Okay. All right. Are there any items that we needed to add or delete from the agenda?
So just the one thing, Heather, I had touched base with you about this earlier on is that the students and the faculty advisors for our Model UN group that was planning to do this, be a part of the Student Program Spotlight, they actually requested that they prefer to do the presentation in person. So if we could just, when we get to that part of the agenda, we'll just table that agenda item for a future meeting when we can get them in and do that and have that as a Student Program Spotlight. We appreciate the work that they did to put together a presentation. We want to make sure that we, get them in front of us.
Okay.
Hey, Heather, this is Mike. I just want to let you know, I did join the meeting a minute or two late, but I update the minutes to reflect.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right. Did any of the student representatives join? Looking for their report. Okay. That will bring us to the board chair report. I did, Scott Soyette has agreed to be the CABE representative for the coming year. So thank you very much for that, Scott. They communicate a lot. I think, what they're really looking for is for you to report out on a monthly basis. I did participate in the board chair check-in last week, which was really about the state budget and ways that we can help. So CABE has communicated with folks about the Day on the Hill. If you're interested in doing that, please let me know. They're looking for people to go. There's a report out at the Bushnell, and then we can make appointments for our legislators to discuss any items that we would like. And then finally, this week, I will be participating in a deep dive on the budget, which is a workshop that CABE is hosting because everybody is, obviously doing their budgets right now for the next school year. So that's it for me. Colin, that'll bring us to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so thank you. So there's just a handful of things I wanted to share. Last week, we actually had our mid-year graduation, which is always a great event. We had about 4 or 5 students that graduated midway through the year. They'll be able to now, enjoy some downtime for the remainder of the school year, and certainly able to participate in all of the senior events that take place as we go into the spring and towards graduation, and participate in our regular graduation as well. So we're excited for them. Also last week had one of my favorite events. The board's heard me talk about this. Unified basketball at the middle school took place. Went down to that. It was great to see the kids enjoy themselves. And we actually have another unified. I know we have another middle school unified game coming up in mid-March. We can make sure that we get that date to the board if any board members are able to come. The other thing that I'll just mention briefly is that I was really happy that last week when we had that weather pattern that was moving in, and we were a little concerned about whether or not we were going to have to close early. And I was really happy to not have to close early. I think it was Friday. Because our girls volleyball team who of course won the state championship again this year, was invited to a really special opportunity, which was to actually attend a UConn girls basketball team practice and observe the practice at UConn campus. And then at the conclusion, part of it was that Coach RHAM was going to talk to the team about, what it takes, a winner's mindset, what it takes to be, successful when you compete at that level. And, obviously the notoriety and the incredible talent that is a part of that team that they have this year, but obviously just Coach RHAM's success in that realm is really unmatched. So it was just a great opportunity. And I was, again, I would have been so upset if I had to cancel school or close school early because of that, because obviously we shut down afternoon and evening activities when we do that. And again, the weather was agreeable to us that day. It was not agreeable to us today, and it will be agreeable to us for tomorrow. But again, it was a great opportunity for our girls volleyball team and their coaching staff to be able to go to UConn and hear from Coach RHAM. So that concludes my report. You're muted, Heather.
Yeah, Heather, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was trying to be, not have you guys hear background. So this brings us to the student program spotlight that we're going to, do we need a motion to table that? Or so we'll do it next time. All right. And that will bring us to the consent agendas. You're muted now, Colin.
All right, we got to break this cycle. So there's quite a few minutes from regular meetings and special meetings that we had. We had some budget workshops, special meetings, and also as a part of the consent agenda is the approval of policies after revision or for deletion. There were 4 policies that came forward after the last meeting, and those again didn't have any questions about any of those policies. So I would recommend that those can get approved as a part of consent agenda. I believe, Scott, if I'm not wrong, one of the meeting minutes has a misspelling of your name. Could you remind me which one that is so we can make sure we get that fixed?
Yeah, I think it's the 4th one in the list. I don't remember what date it was. It was an executive session.
Yep. All right. Fantastic. We'll make sure that we adjust those minutes and before we get those posted on our website. So other than that, again, I recommend the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved. Scott,
Scott, we have a second. Drew, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, thank you. And that will bring us to new and unfinished business, the presentation and possible action regarding the 2024-2025 audit.
So at this time, I will turn it over to Eva to introduce our guests who are going to present their findings from the audit.
Right. So joining us this evening is Catherine Patnott. She is the lead partner on our audit, I guess is the best way to put it. She has a presentation in place for review of the audit. So to bring the board up to speed on what and if anything they found. I'll leave it over to Catherine.
Thanks, Eva. Good evening, everyone. So like she said, I'm going to go through the 24-25 audit, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on it. So we're going to take a look at the highlights from the annual financial report, as well as required communications to the board, recommendations, as well as future considerations. So taking a look at the financial statements, you received an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. So that's the clean opinion that you're looking for. The management's discussion and analysis, or MD&A, is a good executive summary of the fiscal year operations. So that's a good place to start if you want to get a high-level overview. Changes from your 2024 audit was the implementation of GASB Statement Number 101, compensated absences. Compensated absences are those sick and vacation liabilities on the government-wide financial statements on Exhibits A and B. This statement, the implementation of this increased the liability and decreased the net position by $532,000. This was primarily because in the past, sick and vacation had only been considered if there was a payout. And now under the new standard, it was required to consider if there was any use of accrued vacation or sick time. So that added to the liability on every one of my clients. Also different this year is you had no single audit, as your state grants were below the state threshold of $500,000, which did get increased this year. Previously, the state's threshold for a single audit was $300,000. And then your federal grants were below the federal threshold of $750,000, so you didn't need a federal single audit either. Taking a look at the government-wide activity on Exhibits A and B, your capital asset additions totaled $1.5 million. These additions included the track replacement, repair of athletic fields, carpets, HVAC, window security film, Chromebooks, and security cameras. The long-term debt decreased $356,000. This was due to debt service payments of $577,000, partially offset by a new note payable of $220,000, which was for IT equipment. Taking a look at the governmental funds on a GAAP basis, these can be found on Exhibits C, D, and E. The general fund, the fund balance decreased $390,000 from the prior year, which we'll take a look at shortly with the budgetary highlights. This brought you down to a fund balance of $2,698,000. The capital improvement fund remained pretty much the same as last year, with an ending fund balance of $59,000, since your capital outlay was pretty comparable to the assessments and approved projects. The capital non-recurring fund decreased $852,000 from last year down to $300,000. This was mainly due to a $787,000 transfer out to the new Reserve for General Education Fund. This Reserve for General Education Fund, new fund this year due to the revised statute about the unexpended 2% appropriations. So that increased $1.1 million due to that transfer from capital non-recurring, as well as $625,000 of unexpended general fund funds from prior years. Your other governmental funds include the grants, school activity, and school lunch funds. These had a slight decrease of $37,000 down to fund balance of $834,000. Now, taking a look at your general fund budgetary highlights, these can be found on RSI 1 in the audit. Your total revenues were below budget by $1 million. This was primarily due to the member town assessments, which were $832,000 below budget. This was planned for. When you look at your adopted budget in 24-25, you budgeted for member town assessments of $31,294,000, but then you did have a member town levy and enrollment credit offset of $830,000. From prior year surpluses. So this was planned. It's just the way it needs to be budgeted to have a balanced budget, which is why it looks like it has such a negative there. And then intergovernmental revenues were $163,000 below budget, primarily due to the excess cost grant came in under budget, but your special ed costs were also lower than expected. There was also an appropriation of fund balance of $625,000. This was from the fiscal year 24 surplus and got transferred out to the reserve for general education fund. Taking a look at the expenditures, those were well below budget by $1.2 million. This included central services being below budget by $506,000, primarily due to personnel savings. Operation and maintenance of plant was below budget by $229,000, mainly to HVAC repairs that did not occur. And transportation was below budget by $211,000, mainly due to change in student placements. And then for fiscal 25, you had a budget surplus of $235,000, which can be calculated by taking your total underspent budget less those revenues that were below budget. So now there are required communications with those charged with governance. This was a letter you should have received electronically. This letter states that our responsibility is to form and express an opinion about whether the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. It discusses significant estimates, which include the OPEB or other post-employment benefit liability, as well as the compensated absences liability. We discussed that disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. We mentioned we had one past adjustment. This was $61,000. We passed on reporting accounts payable for services that were incurred during fiscal 25, but they were budgeted for in fiscal 26. It's just that the work was started earlier than planned. We had no material corrected misstatements. We did request and receive management representations, and it discusses that we are independent of the district. Now we'll take a look at the one recommendation that we had on general ledger record keeping. This recommendation is mainly to just promote clearer classification and reporting in the general ledger. So to one, separately track the interfund and intergovernmental transactions, just so they're in separate accounts. Implement periodic reconciliations of interfund balances across funds, just so those are fully reconciled at year end, as well as developing or refining procedures for recording accounts payable and retainage at year end. You don't often have a lot. You don't have a lot of capital projects, but it's just something to look at year end. And then a few future considerations, some GASB standards that are coming up down the road. Financial reporting model improvements, GASB 103. This will be effective for fiscal year 26. The main items in here are the management's discussion and analysis. This clarifies and updates the guidance for preparation of it to improve the equality of the analysis of changes from the prior year. So the big change you'll see is just more discussion into the why things changed. You don't have proprietary funds, so that it doesn't affect you. So the only other part is the budgetary comparison information. With this standard, you're now required to explain significant variances in the notes to RSI. So currently those are in the MD&A. They'll just get pulled out of there and put in RSI. So they'll still be there, just in a different place in the financials. GASB 104, disclosure of certain capital assets, will also be effective for fiscal 26. This will be pretty minor change. Actually, it won't affect you at all because it just says that right to use lease and subscription assets must be presented separately by major asset class. Currently, you only have leased machinery and equipment, so that's already broken out separately. So that won't cause a change there. And then if you had any capital assets held for sale, they would have to be disclosed. And then the last GASB standard that is coming out is GASB 105 on subsequent events. This will be effective for fiscal year 27. This just clarifies the subsequent events that would be recognized or non-recognized events, and it establishes specific note disclosure requirements for non-recognized events. And that's all I have for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So Mr. Golphin, did the discussion on the 832,000 answer your question?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that. Are there any additional questions that folks may have for Catherine?
A couple of the acronyms there. GAP, I know I've seen, but I've forgotten what it is.
Generally accepted accounting principles.
Accepted. Okay, I got almost all of it. And GASB?
The Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
Okay. I did have a question I was going to ask. No, I think it was answered. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Catherine. We appreciate your time with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion that the Region 8 Board of Education accept the 2024-2025 budget audit.
So before we do that, I don't remember getting a copy of the audit.
So unfortunately, you would have received it this evening.
Uh-huh.
But we're here.
Okay, so
it is posted online in case anyone is looking for it on our website, and there are copies in each of the town halls as well.
And the letter,
no, those letters will be coming to you with the book. I feel like we had an electronic copy that may have been presented to the board, but I'm not sure if that happened because of today as well in terms of timing and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, so most likely we'll get that to you as soon as possible after this meeting.
So is it proper for us to accept the audit without actually having possession of it?
So obviously that's an individual choice. I mean, if somebody wants to make the motion and accept it without seeing it, then they could do that. I mean, like Eva said, it's publicly available.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was on our website. So I didn't get a chance to look at it.
Can we table it for next meeting?
I'd like to.
Let's do that.
A motion was never made, so we could certainly just have this be an agenda item for.
Okay.
And so I guess you can make a motion to table this till the next meeting.
Except that's the table of motion, which we don't have. So.
Well, it's discussion and possible action. So I don't think we need to table it. We could just simply add it to
the next agenda.
I think that we will have to table 10.2, which was the discussion of, as we were just informed, there was a surplus from last year's budget of $235,000. So we'd have to table 10.2 until the board is ready to accept the audit.
Yep.
What does that do with the timing of the budget process?
It doesn't really it doesn't have any impact, Eva, unless you tell me I'm wrong. I don't think it has any impact.
No, I believe what was discussed with the facilities and finance subcommittees in our joint meeting was that this money was going to be put into a holding pattern for the athletic fields improvement that we need to try to put some savings together so that we can finalize what needs to be done there.
And there was, the amount of $235,000 it's not like we had any immediate plans for that money. Basically, we left it at, there's 2 outstanding projects from the fields assessment that was done. We're looking at fixing one of I'm going to forget which one it is. Either 316 North or 316 South still needs.
South.
Thank you. So we need to still work on 316 South because that field is still in need of being addressed. And then also the drainage issue for the outfield of the baseball field. Those are really the next 2 priorities. We hadn't even landed on which one we'd want to go with first. So it really doesn't have any impact, Heather, at all.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, with 2 feet of snow on them, it's really not going to happen for a little while.
We've got plenty of time, and there's more snow on the horizon, Drew. So I
know. Did you give us a hint about the school tomorrow earlier in the meeting?
There was no hint. The message was sent out, I think, at 4:00 today that school is canceled for tomorrow.
Oh, okay. All right.
I didn't mention it in the meeting, but
okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, that'll bring us to 10.3, discussion and possible action regarding the RHAM High School 2026 graduation date.
Yeah, so there was a memo in your packet, and up until about 4:00 today, it said that my initial recommendation was going to be to establish graduation date of Friday the 12th. Obviously, we don't want to establish it for Friday the 12th because we missed today, which would have pushed it to Monday the 15th. But with school being closed on Tuesday the 16th, with school being closed tomorrow, it means that my recommendation now has moved to that the RHAM graduation date be established for Tuesday, June 16th, 2026.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept, to approve the 2025 RHAM High School graduation date of June 16th, 2026?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if we vote on it and it's approved, does it move if you have more snow days in March?
It does not. The reason that we need to, it's a great question, Jess. And the reason we need to establish it is because we need to lock in a number of different things. We rent furniture and staging, chairs and staging for graduation. So we need to lock that date in that we're actually going to do it. And the other big thing is our project graduation, which is thankfully run by Tressa Giordano and our friends at RHAM. And they need to lock in when we are actually going to have the graduation night because they have to secure the location where project graduation is going to be held. So the last day of school, if there's a weather event that requires us to close school again for any reason, graduation date will remain on the 16th. But the last day of school would simply move, and our seniors would get out a little bit before our underclassmen. But it does happen from time to time. But it's the way it is.
They're not asked to show up anyway. Those last couple days.
I'm hoping there's no more cancellations. I said to my kids when they were in high school and school age, I'd said, guys, you'd rather be going to school on a cold day in December, January, or February than going to school on a nice, beautiful day in June. So I think we're all feel like I'm good if we don't have any more snow days.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Second, that was Amy. Thank you. Any other discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay. That will bring us to 10.4. Discussion and possible action regarding the special education transportation request for proposal. It's enclosure 10.4.
Happy to have Eva take this one as well.
All right, so we had a collaborative request for proposal between Regional School District 8 and Hebron Elementary School. We had bid openings on February 9th. As part of all the submissions, we received 3 submissions. All 3 were qualified vendors, so that we proceeded to review the submissions. And based on price, we went with the lowest price submission, and that is Ambassador Wheelchair Services. And the recommendation is hopefully that the board will approve Colin to enter into contract with Ambassador. after this step, when the board votes on it, it will go to the Hebron Board of Education as well for their thoughts on the process as well. Are there any questions that the board may have at this time?
Yeah, one question that I assume there's cost changes associated with this contract. Is that already into the budget, the proposed budget we have?
It has not been put into the budget as of this point in time, due to the timing of when everything was received and when the 2.77 was developed. But also in March is when the insurance consortium finalizes the health insurance rate that we will be utilizing. And since I believe it's 15% is in the budget now, last known number looks like it's going to go up in percentage points. So this will, we're going to keep putting stuff in, additions and subtractions, the adjustments into the budget until the board finalizes the budget in March.
Yep. So how big a difference in cost is this over a current year?
So based on the current information that we have, based on the current students and enrollment that is known to us, it's about $109,000 savings. Yes.
Savings. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, better.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, go ahead, Rudy.
Rudy?
Yep.
Any other discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, anyone abstain? Sorry. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the personnel report, which enclosure 10.5.
So there's just two resignations that I needed to share as a part of this month's personnel report. Amy Maloney, who has been a health and wellness teacher for the district, she resigned effective June 30th, 2026. She's been with us since 2022. And then also Pat Merrigan, who is a social studies teacher at RHAM High School, has resigned effective February 13th, 2026. He has been employed with the district since August of 2012. And I certainly wish Amy and Pat all the best as Amy stays home with her baby and Pat moves into a new position outside of education. That concludes my personnel report.
All right. Do you want to go into the discussion of subcommittee consolidation 10.6?
Yeah, so there's a memo in everybody's packet. As Heather just alluded to, it's enclosure 10.6. I realized, I think, after our last facilities and finance joint subcommittee meeting that I think it's been close to a year since we've had a separate meeting. Drew, you might help out with that, but I think it's probably been about a year since we've done a separate facilities meeting or separate finance meeting. And that got me thinking about, does it make sense to have those two subcommittees as standalone separate subcommittees? Because every time we're talking finances, we're talking a lot, well, not every time, but most of the time we're talking about finances, we are talking about facilities projects, and we've got some obviously on the horizon coming up with the bonding that we're looking to do for next year. And every time we talk about facilities, there's always obviously finances involved. So it really seemed to make sense to me to consolidate those two committees. At the same time, we have also the program subcommittee and the policy subcommittee. The program subcommittee meets very infrequently. It really, it pops up when we have a new course to bring to the board, or it pops up when we have a textbook that needs to be approved by the Board of Education. It's policy subcommittee does meet more frequently. We've done a lot in the past 3 years to really revamp and update our policy handbook, which we've done the lion's share of that. But it is always good, I think, to have more board members involved, at least a few more involved with the conversations that we have about the policies that are coming to the full board for revision or deletion. And so I had this epiphany, and I reached out to Heather and I said, hey, what do you think about the idea of consolidating program and policy and facilities and finance? For the sake of efficiency, it makes sense. It means potentially less meetings. I'm always looking at ways that we can be more efficient with time, energy, and effort. And Heather said, go for it. So I reached out to the chairs of each one of those 4 subcommittees and ran the idea by each one of them. And every single one of them said, yeah, it seems to make sense. It sounds like a good idea. We'd still have a standalone separate negotiation subcommittee that would meet as needed when we are negotiating with any bargaining units. But again, I really feel like this is a more efficient and it just makes sense to do this. So that's my proposal. There is a policy or board bylaw 9141 that designates that we actually have the separate 5 subcommittees: policy, facilities, finance, and program. So we'd have to make a change to that bylaw, which it really wouldn't be that complicated. I could bring that to the next policy subcommittee meeting, which we'll have in a week or so, and basically just go through the process of updating it. And then, basically we would take the board members, divide them into the 2 separate subcommittees that we would have. Another recommendation that I made to Heather was the idea of having 2 subcommittee chairs or co-chairs for each subcommittee. That way, if there was a need for somebody to not be at a meeting, that there'd be somebody else there. That seemed to make sense as well. I shared that idea with each of the current subcommittee chairs, and they agreed that made sense to do it that way also. I can certainly try to take any questions that people might have, but that's essentially what I'm recommending or encouraging the board to consider in a nutshell.
Okay, I'm not on either finance or facilities. I understand that's how they always meet together. It makes sense to me that, if they're always meeting together, it might as well combine. It's less clear to me on the other 2, though. There's not much overlap in what they do. We could have a bigger committee that does more, but I see less reason to combine them. And the program is an infrequent thing.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I think that it makes sense to combine those 2, if we're combining facilities and finance to combine the other 2, is just because of the fact that I think that there is a benefit to having more. I think our policy subcommittee has 3 members on it, and this would really, potentially be 5 board members on the policy subcommittee. The policy and program joint subcommittee. I always think it's good to have more people's voices involved in the conversation when you talk about, making potential changes to policies.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree that having a bigger policy committee would make sense. I just don't know about program. We meet twice a year, maybe on average, something like that.
3 to 4, it depends.
3 to 4. Okay. I'm not particularly upset by this idea. I'm just wondering where that goes, what it's for. I'd also suggest if we do this, that while we update bylaw 9141, we take out the specific list and say that, this is an annual thing that we create, or biannual, after the elections, we, reform our committees as needed. And let the board decide its committees.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. So rather than lock in stone, because we may decide, for example, that program and policy maybe we don't think that should go together, since the program doesn't meet that often, even though we want more people on policy. If we don't put specifics into, the specific structure into the bylaw, we have some flexibility. After each election, we can say, or after each year, we can say, these are our committees, and be done with it.
So you're saying every year we would say we're going to have a finance committee and facilities, which is joint, and we may not have a program committee?
I'm saying it's up to, if we word the bylaw carefully, I think I'm trying to follow, Channel Scott here, because I think he makes a good point. If we don't put the specific committees and their structures into the bylaw and just say the board will have subcommittees that address issues such as finance, facilities, program, policy, we can decide on the structure we want in any given year. And that makes sense to me.
I would encourage, I don't know if that would be wise, because then you're going to have different boards from year to year coming in, and the idea of having a bylaw, it establishes kind of, this is what the board is agreeing to. If there wants, just for context though, so the program subcommittee also, it's not just, there's a couple of things. It's not just program, it's program, communications, technology. Facilities is also facilities, safety, transportation. So if there's issues, so basically what we'd be doing is saying the two subcommittees would be finance. It would be a combination of finance, facilities, safety, and transportation. The other one would be policy, program, communications, and technology. So those would be the two standing ones that meet with a degree of regularity. And again, negotiations is, the committee's put together and meets as necessary when negotiations are taking place. I would, again, listen, it's the board's decision. It's the board's bylaw. I don't know if it would be wise to have just say, hey, there's going to be committees that cover these topics, because then we don't want to create inefficiencies. We don't want to have a year where somebody says, well, let's create 7 subcommittees, because then you're going in the different direction. I'd rather stay with what we have than have that be the possibility. To me, it makes sense. Just because I go to every subcommittee meeting. And for us to tack on discussing 3 new class proposals into every 3 or 4 policy subcommittee meetings isn't a heavy lift for the existing policy. And similarly, having the program people be a part of the policy subcommittee, you just get additional voices in the conversation and additional perspectives in the conversation when it comes to making changes to board policy. So I do not, again, respectfully, I don't think it would be good to have this nebulous kind of flexible policy language that says you'll figure it out from year to year. Essentially, the way it is right now is there's 4 subcommittees with 5. I apologize, with negotiations, and essentially it's the directive of the board chair to identify people to be on those different policies.
From my perspective, also, once the elections happen, I have to, or whoever's going to be the chair, has to assign the board members to committees, and kind of it's an unwritten thing that everybody's supposed to sign up for 2, but we don't have that anywhere in our bylaws, and it's not everybody wants to sign up for 2, and it becomes very hard to even get enough people on some of the committees. So to me, I like the idea of consolidating so that we do have more people. I think that from a management standpoint of the committees, it will be better for us in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to reiterate that, as Colin said, he spoke to the subcommittee chairs, and I completely support this consolidation. It's just how it's worded in the policy. I was trying to follow on you, Scott. So go ahead, take it.
No, and I'm just not a hill I ever want to die on. I just thought that we don't, if we have to do this another time in a couple of years, and we decide that, communications, technology, and transportation really should be off together, and the others, that we don't need to go through, a policy committee and a first reading and a second reading of this bylaw to change them. That's just kind of a decision of the board. But I don't have, it's not a major thing to me. I like the idea, but honestly, I didn't even know that. I'm on the program committee. I think I've made all the meetings since I've been on the board, and I didn't realize it was program communication and technology. I've forgotten, I'm sure, but program. It was about new courses or new course material. That's what it's always been, as far as I remember. And I don't know if facilities, safety and transportation. There was a point where I'm sure safety stuff was a big deal, but I don't know if it is right now. And how about transportation? Do you guys do a lot with that?
No, I mean, there's a very clear policy about transportation. The only real issues that we run into with regards to transportation is if there's concerns that parents express about particular bus stops or transportation issues, and there's a whole policy that kind of speaks to how you address those types of issues.
Okay.
I think that this policy was last updated in quite some time ago. I can't remember when 9141 was updated. But we're going to continue to talk about facilities changes, obviously. And when we talk about facilities changes, we are constantly talking about improvements to safety and security. So, the subcommittees, they just kind of have been truncated as how they're identified, program, policy, finance and whatnot. So, but I remember a couple of years ago, I think, Heather, I know you were on the board at the time and you were a part of the subcommittee where we had some conversations and meetings, and we actually had a specific meeting of the program subcommittee because we wanted to discuss communicating changes or recommendations related to the budget with a larger community. I think that was 2 years ago. So, as those topics come up and need to be discussed at the board level, then that's where they're discussed oftentimes initially with board members.
Yeah, the policy was updated actually last May, but before that was 2016. I don't remember what the things was, but that's on the policy right now.
Does anybody have any other comments on that?
No, I think it's a good idea, and I think we should do it. And I know we have to get it through policy and all that. So
yeah. So now we'll go back to the policy committee, right? Okay. All right. Speaking of first readings of policies. Colin, do you want to take this? It's 10.7 A and B in your attachments.
Yeah, so there's two that we're bringing forward this month. So the first one is credit accrual in the middle school, and the red line version in the that is in your board packet of 10.7A just shows that we really just took out and struck the language that had been in existence. And I wanted to provide a context as to why we're looking to make this change. We're certainly not looking to remove the ability for students to accrue high school credit taking middle school classes where the materials and the content and the curriculum matches what is done in the high school. So that's certainly something that we want to do, but we felt it was important to include information in there that says students enrolled in RHAM middle school classes. And the reason that we wanted to do that is because when I say we, I mean the administrative team and myself. And then, of course, I brought it to the policy subcommittee is because of the fact that we have students attending RHAM high school now that don't attend RHAM middle school. And we wanted to be very clear that, our courses that we teach in the middle school where students do have the ability to receive high school credit, we know that they are following that curriculum. They are using the same materials. They are taught at the same level of rigor as high school courses. And we have the ability to ensure that is happening. We don't have the ability to ensure that that's happening with any other school where a student comes into us from a different school, whether it's Columbia or whether it's a student transferring in from a middle school where that was not RHAM. And so we just really wanted to specifically identify that it's, students are enrolled at RHAM middle school classes that use the RHAM high school curriculum and who demonstrate mastery and competencies comparable with RHAM high school courses shall be awarded those high school credits. So that was really the crux of it. I will tell you that I've communicated with the superintendent in Columbia, and I've certainly said to them, like, hey, we do allow students at RHAM middle school to earn high school credits for some classes that we do offer. And if they're interested in trying to align their curriculum with ours or utilize the curriculum that we utilize, and we can make sure that again, it's being taught with that same level of rigor, then we're open to the idea of including and allowing those students to earn high school classes if we can get there. She appreciated the fact that we were offering that. And that was really the response that I've gotten at this point. But that's really the crux of this recommended change.
and I would like to speak to this. I you assume you've seen my comment, Colin, but I feel like in the policy committee, we wanted that last bit to somehow be captured in the policy. That bit about we need to find a way. We don't got it yet, but that somehow we need to make sure that the school of choice students are not second-class citizens. That they, if the classes are appropriate, we should do it. Now, how we get that is not clear, and I think you and curriculum director and department heads or somebody should find a way to do that. And so I feel like that should be in the policy in some way, though, to make it clear.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not opposed to including that. I think the first step, though, is I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse. And what I mean by that is I don't even know if Columbia is interested in trying to articulate their curriculum in the middle school. Right. So, basically the response that I got from the superintendent was, hey, thanks very much. I appreciate you letting me know. When I said, hey, by the way, if it's something that you're interested in doing, let me know. I'm happy to talk to you about it. And her response was non-committal. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It just was non-committal. If she comes back to me and says, hey, I really want to see if we can make this happen, then I 100%, then we can certainly do that. And if the board desires us to try to come up with some language to include in there that says, if we can figure out a way to articulate classes that are offered in, sending schools, then again, I can certainly sit down with Mary Rose Mead and we can try to come up with some language to include in this policy.
Yeah, it's just something I'd like to see. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I want to make it clear the whole way. And anything we now have students that aren't coming through, from our sending towns, our regular sending towns, and not coming through RHAM middle school. We want to make sure that they are equal participants in everything we possibly can. I don't know how others feel about this, but
I'm not sure we need to put it in a policy right now. I mean, I think if Columbia comes forward and says, because they have to go through a process that, and they know they do it. If they come through and they say, here's the steps we'd like to take to make sure the following classes are acceptable, we can certainly revisit the policy.
Sure. But some of the students presumably will be coming in September. And it's now February. If we don't have anything in place so those students could take advantage of it, it's kind of sad. This year,
I don't think that'd be possible for any kids coming in the fall. It wouldn't work for them regardless, because they haven't been exposed to our curriculum, and the courses that they're in right now have not been articulated in any way, shape, or form. So for us it wouldn't work for students coming in next year.
Okay, so they don't have any courses that they think are high school level courses that their middle school honors students take or whatever.
I honestly don't know. What I can tell you though is the crux of the ability for middle school students to earn the high school credit is they are using the specific RHAM high school course curriculum. Okay, whereas I don't know what the curriculum is that's being used in Columbia. I'm not saying that in a disparaging way in any way, shape, or form about Columbia and the level of rigor that they have or the courses that they offer. I'm just simply saying that basically what Columbia would have to be agreeable to is us either is utilizing our curriculum or us really doing an audit of their curriculum and saying, does this meet what we feel is the necessary standards to earn a high school credit? Does that make sense? And
right. No, I understand. And that's a big job. That's why I would like to say to get it in now so that we can start developing what the rules are, how we're going to do it. Even if they're not going to use it this fall, maybe Columbia is going to come back and say, well, yeah, we have these 3 courses that we have, instead of the normal French, middle school stuff, we have an advanced conversational French or whatever that we think is high school rigorous, and we'd like you to look at it. I just don't know how we do that.
I don't know if it would be them coming to us to present a class that they teach that they feel is rigorous enough. I think it's them saying to us, we'd like to teach your class that you're teaching. I like, because what I don't want to do is I would feel horrible if Columbia came to us, or if we continue to develop a partnership with other school districts. I'd feel horrible if they come to us and say, this is a course that we feel is worthy of a high school credit. And we look at it and we say, we disagree with you.
Yeah.
That like, I just like, I don't think that's going to do very much to positively benefit our partnership. I just think that's so it just, to me, that's not the approach. But basically what I said to Barbara Wilson, the superintendent there, was, hey, listen, we do teach some high school classes that we use our high school curriculum. If you're interested in trying to implement some of that stuff at Columbia and potentially have your kids earn high school credit, let me know. And she, again, just, hey, thanks very much. I appreciate it. The other thing, though, is that I don't know if they have this type of an arrangement with E.O. Smith or Bolton. Yeah. And so
it might be hard for them regardless.
And so they could be saying, well, right now we're teaching a course that enables our students to earn a high school credit in Bolton or E.O. Smith. And so, you know, maybe Bolton or E.O. Smith isn't willing to say, well, yes, go ahead and implement the RHAM curriculum and utilize the RHAM curriculum materials and resources. So it's like I said, I think that it's really them coming to us and saying, hey, listen, remember when you mentioned the idea of doing this? Let's talk a little bit more about it.
Okay.
Jessica, I think, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was going to suggest that, looking at whether EO and Bolton do have that, because if RAM did set that up, that could really be a huge draw for kids to be able to earn credits they might want to attend. So
that's exactly why we felt it was beneficial to offer it, Jess. Because I agree. I think it's a very, again, I'm hearing from kids. I've said this to you guys before. I'm hearing from students that, you know, they're graduating college in 3.5 years, or even in some cases 3 years, because they're graduating RAM with so many college credits. And part of the reason they're able to do that is because they get some of those high school credits out of the way in middle school, and it opens up their schedule to take ECE classes and AP classes that they otherwise might not have taken. So I agree with you. It's a huge benefit to anybody that's coming into the district to have the ability to do that.
So now the 3 elementary districts are going to come calling with their, let's bump it down another level.
All right, Colin, do you want to go over the next one, 10 point, or policy 3168?
Yeah, so this is a pretty easy one. So we last spring we updated our a different policy that was budget timelines and procedures. I apologize, I don't have the number in front of me, but when we updated that one, we modified an existing policy that we had, and we aligned it with shipment recommendations, and we just tweaked and adjusted it, and it was approved. One of the things, though, is it actually has information. There's language in that existing policy that talks about transfer of funds within the budget in that revised budget timeline and procedures policy. So this language is unnecessary because it exists in another policy. And so that's why I'm recommending deletion.
Okay. Any other questions about that? All right, that will bring us to the presentation and discussion of recommended reductions in the 2026-2027 Region 8 Public Schools proposed administrative budget.
All right, so Eric has a presentation, which thank you for pulling it up. So at our last budget workshop, you know, I presented our curriculum, our department coordinators and some of our directors presented their budgets, and there was some conversation. And at the conclusion of the meeting, there was just concern expressed about, you know, where RHAM's budget was in comparison where other districts are. And essentially I walked away from that meeting feeling that I was tasked with coming up with recommendations for what a 2% decrease would look like, moving it from a 4.77% increase to a 2.77% increase. So, Eric, if you can go to the next slide, it'd be great. So, but I wanted to provide some context before I make those recommendations. So just again, as a reminder, the initially proposed budget was $34,176,011. And as I previously noted, it was a 4.77% increase over the previous year's budget. If you go to the next slide. So if you compare our 4.77% initially proposed budget to some local school districts as well as other DERG C school districts, a 4.77% increase is among the lower of the percentage increases amongst, again, local and DERG C districts that I was able to get numbers for. I also think that it's important that the board remember that, and the public remember that the initially proposed budget that was a 4.77% increase was inclusive of many reductions that had already been made during the budget development process after having been included in the initial budget requests of different budget owners. Those reductions included the removal of equipment, furniture, and maintenance services and updates, most of which will need to be included in future budgets. There were also personnel reductions, including the reduction of our summer school credit recovery staff, the reduction of 6 assignments, and the elimination of 4 full-time positions. And as you can see on this, again, it's a high school business teacher and then 3 para-educator positions. If I had not made those reductions that I had made, the budget would have, which equate to about $800,000. The budget that I would have initially proposed to the board would have been a 7.42%. And Eric has the next slide for us, which is great. So it's also important to point out, I think, that the significant percentage of our operating budget, 73% to be exact, is spent on salaries and benefits of our employees, and that over $1.2 million of the proposed budget was for contractual increases to salaries and benefits. Go to the next one, Eric. And then the last thing I just wanted to provide information to the board about is that we do realize or have realized some increases since presenting the proposed budget on January 23rd. They include adjustments due to healthcare enrollment changes and some increases to repairs and inspections. Some quotes came in higher than expected. Those increases total out to be about $42,000. And they would need to be factored into any recommended reductions that I would make for you tonight in order to get down to the 2.77. The other thing that I'll mention before Eric transitions over is, and Eva alluded to this earlier when Scott had asked about transportation savings, is we're still in flux with regards to where our insurance rate is eventually going to fall. So the budget, and board members know this, as we go through, I present in January, but as we go through February and March, and before we establish and the board identifies and sets the budget in April, there's a lot of moving parts that are playing into it before we land on what our final number is going to be. But if we can go to the next one, Eric, thank you. So the first set of reductions, and I tried to really kind of clump together the different reductions. This first one is really just kind of it makes sense to do it. So a couple of things, very basic and certainly not very significant with cost savings, but it does add up, is employee time tracking. We were actually able to negotiate a lower cost for adding on to some software that we're already using for our hiring and employee sick leave and absence tracking. It's our absence management system. It's called Red Rover. We're currently not utilizing the time tracking for hourly employees, but we're going to add that in. And we negotiated a $6,000 decrease in the cost of doing that. So again, there are some savings there. And then finally, Andover locked in their fuel costs, and we're saving $636. So there's $6,636 that we're seeing in savings for software and supplies. Go to the next one, Eric. So the next group would be the next group of recommended reductions would be on equipment and services that we can use funds from the current fiscal year to purchase or have done during this fiscal year. Using funds from the current year's budget to reduce the proposed budget is something that has been done strategically in the past to reduce our budget prior to being adopted and going to referendum. And as you can see on this slide, these recommended reductions total about $158,000. They include a variety of things: equipment, some materials and supplies for groundscaping, I'm sorry, and a whole host of things. If you can go to the next one, Eric, it'd be great. So the next one is, I'm obviously clumping them together, is personnel. I'll provide details about each one of the recommendations in a greater deal of context. So the first one that I took out was the instructional technology specialist that I had proposed be added to next year's budget. I will tell you, I do feel that there is a tremendous need and value in having a dedicated staff member to focus on integration of instructional technology across the district. But I am, cognizant of the fact that obviously we're trying to keep staffing reductions to a minimum. So I did remove the recommendation, or I removed this position from the budget. And I could just say to everybody that you'll see it again next year, because I do think it's an incredibly valuable position. The next one is a 1.0 school counselor. And believe it or not, as timing worked out, within a day or two after our budget workshop, I received a request by initially one school counselor and then followed up by a second school counselor, both of whom are looking to reduce their FTE by 0.5. And so I will say I'm not always able to accommodate requests for, reducing FTEs to below a 1.0, but it makes sense to do it in this situation. And that savings by reducing a school counselor by 1.0 would reduce it by about $107,000. As I noted earlier when I did the personnel report, we had a resignation of a social studies teacher at the high school. So we have a resignation or a position that is vacant through attrition. And we have looked at our student enrollment and class size, and we feel that we can meet the student needs without filling that vacancy. And the next one is a high school science teaching position. We have been very fortunate that we've been able to reduce many positions over the past 4 years that I've been here through attrition in a number of content areas. There has not been any retirements or resignations in this particular content area. But we feel, again, the administrative team and myself feel that we can continue to meet student needs and not negatively impact course offerings. Since this position reduction is not through attrition, it does affect an individual current staff member. But we are fortunate that we do have a vacancy in another content area, and this teacher is qualified to fill that position, and they would be transferred into that position for the start of the 26-27 school year. And then finally, there were a couple of additional 6 assignments that we did review and look at and feel that we can remove them from next year's budget. And so in total, the personnel reductions or recommended reductions would be $468,000. And then the last one, Eric, if you go to that, thank you, is it's a group that include items that would be put into future budgets. Things such as furniture and equipment are the primary things. So we have a few classrooms of science equipment that we're looking to replace their furniture. One of the things that was proposed in the initial budget was the equipment for the elements for leadership class and the training that would go along with it. That's about $22,000 for those things. We would remove that and include that in a future budget. And then just some small ticket items of rooftop guardrails, and then just minor tuition reimbursement that is contractually obligated but has not been used for several years. So those things equal out to be about $59,000. So if you take those things and go down one more, Eric, thank you. So in total, if you add up those different recommended reductions, it comes out to $652,000. And actually, Eric, go to the next one. And as it actually works out perfectly, because that brings us down to a 2.77%. So our budget in total would be $33,525,183. Again, a 2.77, and you can see it's a combination of a net operating budget of $33,025,000. And then keeping the capital budget at $500,000. And then, Eric, if you just go down one more, and if the board were to approve or to take these recommended reductions into account and have us put them into the budget, you could see obviously where we would change our status on that chart. We'd be not only amongst the lowest proposed budgets, again, comparatively speaking to local school districts and in our DIRG, but I could tell you that I've looked anecdotally at numbers that are publicly available, and I can say that we'd be one of the lowest budget increases in the state of Connecticut. I can certainly do my best to take any questions if board members have any for me.
First thing is thanks for the hard work. This, I know how hard that is. No, I don't know. I can only guess, but
it's pretty much all we've done for the past 2 weeks.
I would love to do this, except to keep the technology specialist. That I think that is important. I would love to see that back in. That would probably put us back somewhere around 3%, I imagine. Still right there among the lowest. I haven't done the numbers, but I would guess somewhere around there.
I would agree with that.
I'm in agreement with Scott as well.
I have a question about the science teacher reassignment. Is the reassignment within the science department?
No, I said it was a different content area, Joe.
Okay, so are we sure that that instructor would be willing to do that?
I have had a number of conversations with the individual that's been impacted.
So it would work, is what you're saying, though.
Correct.
Okay.
So Drew, when we sign our contracts with the district, we actually can be put anywhere we're certified to be.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they want to. I mean, they could have been, they could just resign and then we'd be in a different position entirely.
Sure.
Right. So that's why.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
what I could, I'm sorry. What I could say to you is that, I think, people who are teaching a certain content area and have been teaching a certain content area for the brunt of their career. I will say, generally speaking, they're usually not particularly too excited about unanticipated changes. I don't want to speak out of turn and misrepresent any conversation that I had with this employee. But what I could tell you is that I value this employee and I'm excited that this is an avenue that enables this person to stay in district. And I'm happy for us because it's a benefit to the district and to the students. Because I will tell you that I believe that this is an individual who really desires very strongly to stay at RHAM. And so it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay, that's good.
And this child of school teachers, my mother got bumped around and moved and then got to choose where she moved back when an opening came. And if a science opening comes up, my guess is we'd be willing to put this person back, assuming that was what she or he wanted.
I have conveyed that to this individual, that any opportunity that presents themselves for this person to move back into a teaching position. I mean, really, anytime a position is posted, anybody can apply for it. And if I have an internal person that's interested in a position and they're qualified and they're certified to do it, then I always try to, I should say this. I can tell you the administrative team always tries to accommodate such requests. We want to keep people happy. And if they're happy doing a different content area, then great. We're not always able to accommodate those requests, but there's a variety of circumstances. But I've assured this individual that if an opportunity presents itself to move back into the science realm, that I'm not opposed to doing that.
So I am also interested in it was about $56,000 reduction. The roof guardrails was in there.
Yep.
That slide. Can we just go back to that slide for a second, Eric? That one. Yeah. 59,000. So I guess my first reaction is if we need to fix guardrails, we should probably be fixing them because God forbid if anything happened.
Well, what I could tell you about that one is we can throw. I don't want to be blasé about it, but if we're looking at bonding and doing an extensive roof replacement in the next couple of years, we can include it into that project.
My other reaction to this is, we're coming in as the lowest budget increase out of the 3 surrounding towns. And it's our obligation to put forth what we think is a good budget for RHAM and the students in the RHAM community. And for some reason I thought I heard that Hebron actually went up in their budget when they finally voted on it. I mean, I do sort of feel as if we're the only ones who are trying to figure out how to come in a little bit lower. But at the same time, I want to be able to advocate for some of the things that the teachers asked us for in their presentations, that we think are going to add value to the program at the school. And I mean, your position, Colin, that you were interested in having, and then some of the things on there that in the slide that we were just on, I'd like to kind of see if we put those back, where would we fall in the percentage at that point?
So one of the things that I would say is, I think I said this earlier, this is a moving number from the time I initially present in January until the time we finalize it and it goes to the board votes on it in the beginning of April. We already know that the budget, we're not going to set it today because as Eva alluded to earlier, and, again, Scott asked the question about incorporating any savings with regards to transportation changes for special education is, we don't know where we're going to land yet. As Eva said, like in our last insurance consortium meeting, there was conversation that we should potentially look at bumping up to a 16.5% increase for premiums. That's close to $50,000 into itself, right? Then we have potentially some savings to factor in for special ed transportation. There could be things that evolve and change, in between now and our March meeting. And we could certainly, consider, keeping, certainly adding the instructional technology specialist position is, to me, that's, we could do that and we could see where we would be in our March meeting, once the insurance has been set, once we have a better understanding of how any savings through special ed transportation might impact us. And we could say, hey, factoring in those things and then maybe keeping the instructional tech position in, as well as some of those things on that last slide, again, the elements of leadership, that kind of stuff, where would we end up being? I mean, and we might even kind of cherry pick some of those things. Like, could we live another year without those science tables in science? Yes, we could, right? And that was Eric, could you go back to that slide for me, please? That's the brunt of that. So, maybe it's not $59,000 that we put back in, but maybe it's the element for leadership equipment. So one of the things that I did is I prioritized, like with the exception of the tuition reimbursement, because it's just kind of a insignificant number, to be honest with you. But the first of this group, the first thing I'd recommend is the science furniture equipment. We could live without it for a year. So if maybe it's putting in the instructional technology position and putting in everything, taking out tuition reimbursement, taking out the guardrails, but then just putting back in the elements for leadership equipment and the training. So that's $22,000, right? So we could play with it and I can present, the board, like, here's where we'd be if we did this. Here's where we'd be if we did this. And as I said, there could be other changes along the way as well. As I said, when I did the budget workshop with you guys 2 weeks ago, I had no idea that 2 days later I was going to get two school counselors coming to me and saying, hey, I'd like to go from a full-time position to a part-time position. I mean, that just worked out. I could end up getting a resignation, or a retirement, or any number of things that could happen in between now and March that continues to change the dynamic of things and makes us relook at how we might be able to come in at a reasonable number that we think will, be, accepted and voted yes upon by members of our community.
Yeah, I think that's good. I want us to kind of remember that, we're charged with bringing forward the best budget that we can for RAM. And, we can't fix the issues that the towns are having in their town budgets on the backs of the RAM budget.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Heather. But I also look at our history. So for the past 10 increases, we've been below 3%. So we've been able to deliver a budget that's less than a 3% increase for the past 10 budgets. And the 2015-2016 budget was a 3.43%, if I remember correctly. So it seems like we ought to be able to still continue to do that in this really difficult time. And that's where I kind of, there must be a way to sort of keep up our commitment to our students and sort of maintain the trajectory we've had for the past 10 budgets.
I can tell you, though, that sometimes not the case. I can tell you what's going on in Andover right now is that they have had a total increase in the last 10 years of 5% total, less than 0.5% a year for 10 years. This year, they're looking at 11%. They need new teachers. They need things. Because the budgets have been low for so long, you hit that point where it's very, very hard for them to cut anything from the proposed budget right now. They're looking at it, but I don't think they're going to be able to cut much. And I don't know what's going to happen in the referendum.
But have we been extra frugal for the past 10 budgets? I mean, and now we're paying a piper to go to, nearly 5%, or have we been doing a good job all along with the increases we've had? I mean, that's what I haven't heard. I mean, it seems to me I'm pretty proud of our school system. So, and its facilities and the options for its students and so forth. So I'm not sure why this year we needed to, when the towns are struggling and when Andover and Hebron need to do something, that we need to also be, trying to get more.
Can I say something? I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you, Pam. Go ahead.
I actually really appreciate what both Drew and Scott are saying, because Marlboro had gone through years of, we had negative budgets for a time being, which I don't actually know how you do. And Scott, you're right. When you come in so low for so long, eventually you have to, you have to give the schools things that they need. But Drew, I also agree with you. We've done a really nice job over the years maintaining a reasonable budget and an excellent school system, right? My son will be graduating. My third son will be graduating in June, and it's an excellent school. And now is a little bit of a difficult time for the other towns. And I think it is part of our responsibility as a regional school district to recognize that. What I like about Collins' budget, from what I see is, and I know, just from Marlboro in general, and what you try to do always is keep it as far away from the classroom as possible, right? What is not going to impact students directly. And I think Colin's done a really nice job of doing that. Some things fell into place, which were really nice. Some things we say, okay, we can't do that this year. We know it would have to be next year or the following. So I think that's just, I think Scott and Drew both make excellent points. Unfortunately, we do have to respect what's happening, in the surrounding towns right now. And, and I'm fine with adding that position back in also. And I think, like I said, Colin's done a nice job with keeping it away from the students and their education.
Anybody have any other comments on it?
I just want to say thank you, Colin and Eva, for all of your hard work. I think keeping the current staffing is so important for morale, and morale makes a really big difference for students. So thank you for all your work.
And just for the record, I don't have an opposition to maintaining the tech position. That one adjustment, if we could wait a year, that would be okay with me. But if people feel strongly about making it go from 2.77 to, I don't know, 3.05, I don't know what it would be. But anyway, that small amount to get that tech position in, that wouldn't bother me either. It's just.
Can you tell us what that increase would be?
Yeah, I can't give it to you right now. But I could certainly provide that information to you, tomorrow or the next day. Not a problem.
Yeah, I'd like to know what that is. Like, I feel the same as Drew. If everyone feels strongly about that, I would be okay with it. I would just like to see what that number is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to also follow up on what we've been saying is this is here in front of us because last meeting we were all worried about passing a budget at the nearly 5% in our towns. We all knew that our towns were going to have problems at getting budgets passed no matter what. So the better we could do, the better it could be overall. No guarantees about anything, but that's the reason here is because we as the board did ask for this. Even if it's not a final thing and we can still play with things and we've got March to work it out before, I don't remember, second week of April. I can't remember. Our April regular meeting?
First week of April, I think.
First week of April.
So just so I can make sure that I get some clear guidance and make sure I understand things. So sounds like there's a desire to reinstate that instructional tech position. Would you also like me to include the funding for the elements for leadership equipment and training, which again equals out to about $22,000, and then see where that number is, and then again final, knowing that it's not a final number, but putting those things back into the budget, having that be our kind of number. I can share it with the board tomorrow. The only reason I ask that is because I am actually doing a presentation to the Marlboro Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen on Wednesday evening. And I'd like to go in there with not I'm not quite sure where we are number. I'd like to go in there with really a firm number to say this is where we are at this point based off of feedback that you all can give me right now, hopefully.
Well, I think that's a great idea. Those two things, the elements thing and the instructional position. Keep the other cuts you've got here for now until we hear everything else. We hear where the insurance comes in. Is Columbia?
So Scott, you beat me to it. I was going to say we just found out late last week. We budgeted for 10, and we found out that we got 10 students that identified RHAM as the high school of choice for next year. So we don't have that. That's not going to have an impact on our budget to the good or to the bad. Which again, I'm happy that it's not impacting us to the bad. I'm happy we didn't overestimate the number of students, but we'll hopefully keep getting more as time goes on. And there could still be students that change their mind even before the start of the school year and ultimately choose RHAM.
So how many total is that, Colin?
For next year, it'll be 20. We currently have 10. It'll be 10 more.
Okay. All right. So if there's no other comments, we can move on to the financials.
I am happy to turn it back over to Eva.
All right. So in your packets, enclosure 10.9A is the expenditure and revenue report as of January 31st, 2026. There's an anticipated net favorable position of $467,026. At the end of February, we should get the first portion of our excess cost payment. The capital improvement fund is currently, there are no active projects. The reserve for, my apologies, when I first created this account, we called it reserve for educational expenditures. So that stays in my memo, but since the board's policy has been put into place. It's called the Reserve for General Education. So don't want to confuse people. It is the same fund, just two totally different names. So I will correct that moving forward in the reports. So in the general Reserve for General Education Fund as well, all the projects are closed out for this fiscal year. The Pupil Services Department is closely monitoring their expenditures as well. And so there is nothing new to report in that arena as well. I will be happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Anything you're worried about in here?
Anything that I'm worried about. So I am keeping watchful eyes on a couple of moving targets. But so far, knocked on wood, I have lots of wood around me. We seem to be in a steady path. What worries me the most currently is the snow. It's been ages since anyone's had to have snow removal off of their roofs. I don't even want to engage or entertain how much that might cost us. So that is something that I'm keeping an eye on as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so hearing none. 10.9B is the food service monthly expenditure report for January 2026. We currently are at a total net loss of $86,466 for the month or for the year. And at the month end was $5,485, which is a little bit higher than December's was. But excuse me, we did have some testing days in there. And unfortunately, lunch saw a reduction in that regard because our high schoolers, as soon as testing was over, were able to leave. So, it wasn't as many bodies to feed during those few days. So are there any questions that the board may have in that regard?
Yeah, me again. Sorry. I've been on the board a couple of years now, and we've always seemed to have, these negatives here. Is this normal, or is it coming?
So when I first got here before COVID, let's put it to you that way. So before COVID, we actually had a few years, maybe it was a couple of years, that we had to take from the operating budget to put into the fund balance to shore up the food service account. Are we heading in that direction again? It seems to be that way. I'm doing everything in my power to try to stave that off as much as possible. So we're trying to get more creative in the realms of what and how we can feed the children, getting them excited about what to eat and or trying to feed staff members as well and getting them excited to eat in the cafeteria as well. Any additional questions? Okay, so hearing none, 10.9C is the student activity report. The accounts are in balance with what is noted at our bank. So are there any questions that the board may have in that regard?
It's always fun to see. I love looking through this report. The favorite one this time was 0680, Day of Peace. No idea what they did, but I'm glad to hear about it.
We like Day of Peace. So if there are no additional questions, 10.9D is the short-term investment fund. For the month of January, we reinvested dividends in the amount of $616.30. Are there any questions that the board may have in that one? Okay, hearing none, I appreciate your attendance and thank you for listening.
Okay, that brings us to our informational items, Colin, calendar of events and student discipline.
All right. So for calendar events, we've got a few things coming up. We have parent-teacher conferences taking place at both the middle school and the high school, I believe, in the beginning of March. We have our drama production, which I'm excited about. The Addams Family is being performed by our middle school and high school drama students, which is going to be great. That is happening March 7th, I think, is when it starts. So it's the 5th through the 7th. So it's being done over a few different days. I can make sure I send reminders to the board and to attend that if it works out for your schedule. As I noted earlier, that we've got some unified games coming up. We have a couple of our sports teams that have made it into state play, so that's exciting. Moving on to discipline, the information is in your packet as far as disciplinary issues that have taken place at the middle school and the high school in the past month. So I can certainly answer any questions that people might have. That's it.
The testing, the NWEA 6th grade math, science, or math and reading testing. What is that? Why is it on our calendar?
I think they just pull it from events. It's just middle school just pulls their stuff. They have a lot more obviously on there, so they just kind of pull all the upcoming events that they have.
Okay. It's just weird because it's it's not our middle school students; it's the 6th grade students. And so,
yeah, well, but they do the testing for us specifically.
Okay.
So because what the NWEA assessment is utilized, it's an assessment that has a degree of predictive value to it. It helps us get a better understanding of where students are in the different content areas. And so and for math, it helps with placement in the different math levels that students are placed at as 7th graders. So they're really giving the assessment for our benefit in middle school.
All right. That makes sense. That wasn't clear to me, but I also wanted to point out on the high school calendar that the play, I assume, runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights and not twice on Saturday.
I'd have to check, but I can certainly clarify that and
just is there a matinee, a Thursday performance and a Saturday matinee and a Saturday evening? That seems strange, but
yeah, I'm not quite sure. I can certainly let you all know.
I'd like to get to that, but I'll make it to one of them.
Yeah, I'll get the schedule to you guys.
All right. Anybody else have any comments? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Who's that, Rudy or
Rudy?
do we have a second?
I'll second. Scott.
Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.